In Lesson 3.2, you will be estimating square roots. Before we get started, it might be helpful to just write out the perfect squares across the top of your note page. Remember from the last lesson, 1, 4, 9, 16, and so on are perfect squares because 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16, 5 squared is 25, 6 squared is 36, 7 squared is 49, 8 squared is 64, 9 squared is 81, 10 squared is 100, 11 squared is 121, 12 squared is 144, 13 squared is 169, and then 196 is 14 squared. You go to school in District 14 squared. Then 15 squared is 225. 16 squared is 256, and we could keep going in the same pattern, but this will be enough to help you answer most of the questions today. Our first example asks us to estimate the square root of 83 to the nearest whole number. You want to find which two perfect squares 83 is going to fall between. Well, 83 is going to be right here in between 81 and 100, between those two perfect squares. And 83 is closer to 81 than it is to 100. So to the nearest whole number, it's going to be 9. Now, one of the most common mistakes some kids make is they say 9 squared. 9 squared is not the answer because the square root of 81 is not 80, the square root of 83 is not 81. It's about 9 because 9 times 9 is 81, which is really close to 83. So to the nearest whole number, the square root of 83 is 9. You can also visualize it on a number line. The square root of 83 is going to be a little bit closer to 81 than it is to 100. So it would be somewhere between 9 and 10, but closer to 9 than it is to 10. Estimate 23 and 5/10 to the nearest whole number. Well, 23 and 5/10, that's going to be right here between 16 and 25, between those two perfect squares. And it's closer to 25, and the square root of 25 is 5. Not 5 squared, but 5, because 5 times 5 is 25, which is really close to 23.5. So to the nearest whole number, square root of 23 and 5/10 is 5. If you were to visualize that on a number line, it's a lot closer to square root of 25 than it is square root of 16. So therefore, it's going to be closest to 5. All right, why don't you go ahead and try these next three on your own. 35 is going to be between 25 and 36, but closer to 36, and the square root of 36 is 6. 44 and 8/10. 44 and 8/10 is going to be 44 and 8/10. That's going to be between those, and it's going to be closer to the 49 than it is to 36, and the square root of 49 is 7. So this one's going to be 7. And then the last one, square root of 170. 170 is going to be right between these, and it's very close to this one. And the square root of 169 is 13. So to the nearest whole number, the square root of 170 is 13. The last example is a real-world example. It says the golden rectangle is found frequently in the nautilus shell. The length of the longer side divided by the length of the shorter side is equal to this right here. Estimate this value. Well, before we get started, we're going to go ahead and estimate what the square root of 5 is. The square root of 5 If you look back at our perfect squares, square root of 5 is going to be between here, but it's closer to the square root of 4, which is 2. So we're going to say it's about 2. So if I say that this is about 2, it's really 1 plus 2, which is 3, divided by 2. 3 divided by 2 is 1½ So it works out to be about 1½ as the estimate for that value.